Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming out. Welcome to the World Poetry Cafe Adult Tent, by the way. My name is Paul Richmond. I'm coming to you from Massachusetts. Thanks for coming out. Please check all the links to see all the other poets in this series. Everything else that's going on here at the World Poetry Cafe. I believe there's a World Storyteller Cafe also, so check that out. And again, this is the World Poetry Cafe, the Adult Tent. I guess there's a family area also for different stories. What I'll be reading will be fine for high school and up. This first one's called Not Impressed. At a party, the conversation was more about impressing each other rather than getting to know each other. People talked about their heritage, their families coming over on the Mayflower. They're talking about relatives that were great artists. Basically trying to state their gene pool superiority. As far as I know, about half the people who came over on the Mayflower died the first winter. And I'm not so sure that the creative gene is passed on. When it was my turn, I said that my family had a long history of being optimistic. From my first relatives came over on the Titanic. Grandpa is credited with the family's appreciation for theater, because without him, none of us would have been here. If he hadn't put on such a fabulous show on the lifeboat as a woman, but they weren't impressed. This next one is from my other book. That was from You Might Need a Bigger Hammer. I'll be jumping around. This is Ready or Not, Living in the Breakdown Lane. But this piece is called Aren't You Interested? He said hi, and she said try somebody else. He said my name is Love, and she said I've heard that before. He said this time it's real, and she said I've heard that before too. He said I know you're the one, and she said for what? He said for walking into sunsets holding hands. She said, it feels like it's gonna rain. He said, but I have an umbrella. And she said, it looks a little small, not big enough to cover both of us. He said, I'll use it to cover you. She said, I don't want to feel guilty or obligated. He said, it was nice talking to you. She said, what's the matter? You're not interested? This one's called Sharing. I learned the value of sharing in kindergarten, where Miss Peters said to me, I need to share my favorite blocks with Billy. Billy was the boy who tormented me. For every block I found that was smooth and curved and had beautiful grains of wood, Billy would take them from me. He didn't care about any of these things. He only cared about tormenting me and taking the blocks that I found. Billy liked to chew on the blocks, he liked to draw on the blocks, and he liked to throw the blocks at me. Miss Peters said it would be good for my character that I needed to know how to share, and I had to share my blocks with Billy. Miss Peters said sharing would make me feel good. What made me feel good was biting Billy. Miss Peters said I had to stop biting Billy. I said I was sharing my feelings with Billy. That sounded like that was a cell phone. Does anybody in the audience have their cell phone still on? Let's see here. Oh, look at that. I'm the one who has the cell phone out. And so the next one I'm going to read is from my book called Words for Sandwiches. And that was a book that was put out by the National Beat Poetry Society. This one's called Wild Parties at the Senior Home. Word was passed from room to room by Mabel, who for hours would roam the halls. Some say she was looking for a way out. Beth made up all the name tags, drawing on each of them to give each of them a little flair. Billy had saved up all the crackers that he had that came with his soup, hoping that someone was taking care of the cheese. It had been decided by those who could decide these things still, and still think of these things, that Jean would give the signal right after morning singing. We would all refuse to go back to our rooms. No nap today. Today we are going to party down. It was written in the staff logbook that Jean yelled, "Party!" and all hell broke loose. Janet handed out the name tags randomly. So Leona was Stanley, Dave was Roxy. Singing broke out, though it was hard to tell since they were all singing a different song. They went up to each other and called out the name on the name tag and laughed so hard that they pissed and shit in their pants, which wasn't that unusual. Some staff members joined in, laughing hysterically. The uproar of the party was brought to complete silence when Linda's loud voice cried out, "But I am Doug. I've always wanted to be Doug. Please let me be Doug." Linda was starting to chant, "I am Doug, I am Doug," which started everyone chanting, screaming out their own chant. "I am a dancer. I wanted children. I wanted to travel. I'm an artist." It took hours, actually most of the next week, for the staff to try to calm everybody down. In large letters, it was stated in the log there was to be no more parties. This wasn't the purpose of the facility. They weren't set up to handle people coming to grips with their lives. What they had done and not done. Had they been true to themselves? The staff was told, stick to bingo, toss the big ball, stop any activities where residents think about their lives, realizing they are running out of time. This can lead to mayhem. I have a lot of stuff that's between kind of stories and what you might call poems. I'll read this one. I just opened it up to this one. This is called Finishing the Painting. It was one of those cold nights. Everyone's been waiting for the sun. We stood outside this cheap hotel. We couldn't hear any birds. We were lucky to get a room. All the liquor stores were closed. But we had a suitcase full of booze. We thought this was the perfect night, a perfect night to solve all the world's problems. And when we emptied that suitcase of booze, we thought we had solved them all. There was a knock at the door. Actually, the door was kicked in. We had paid for the room with a credit card we had found in the parking lot. They were going to arrest us. We just didn't want to sleep in the cold. We would have been homeless and illegal. Hell, we didn't even mess up the sheets. They said we didn't have to go to jail if we would paint the hotel. So we agreed. Here we are 5 years later. They gave us toothbrushes to paint it with. We are no way near being done. We are still painting. Since they gave us toothbrushes to paint with, we are no way. Oh, look at that. It almost looks like they reprinted in this book that line twice. Now, isn't that, I didn't notice that in the edit. That's actually wrong. But here we go. We're still painting since we gave us toothbrushes to paint with. We are no way ever close to be finishing it. I learned something about myself while I was here. I'm an artist. If you look really close, you'll see sometimes I went horizontally, other times I went vertically. Then I just went wild. It's all in the stroke. One day I asked someone staying at the hotel, could I get a ride to Kansas? And they said that's where they were going exactly. But I decided not to go. I needed to finish the painting. I'm an artist. I need to finish the painting. I'm an artist. I need to finish the painting. This is out of my book, Too Much of a Good Thing, and the Land of Scarcity Breeds Contempt. I was hesitant about the rest of my day. After ordering 2 eggs over easy, wheat toast with orange juice, I received 2 eggs broken against the wall, burnt white toast soggy with butter, warm vinegar called orange juice. At the cash register, the waitress said, "Have a good day." I was hesitant about the rest of my day. This one's called It was delicious. I walked into a bar, walked over to a table. She was sitting by herself. When I approached, she said, "Hi, handsome." I said, "Hi, delicious." She said, "Have a seat." It was a booth. I sat next to her. That way I could have my hand under the table, holding her hand, squeezing her thigh. She said, "Do you want to order?" I said, "Yes." She said, "What would you like to order?" I said, "I want you." She smiled and she squeezed my thigh. We met like this once a month. We've been together for years. We didn't talk about the bills. We didn't talk about who didn't do what. We didn't talk about our disappointments. We looked into each other's eyes. And I asked her if she wanted to come home with me. She hesitated, just to pull my chain. Then she said, "Let's go to my place." We went home. It was delicious. Here's a short one from my first book called No Guarantees, Adjust and Continue. A well-dressed man and a dog. A well-dressed man walked into a bar with a dog. The bartender said, "He looks really mean. He looks like he doesn't listen to anyone. He looks like he'll kill for no reason. And I don't want him pissing and shitting in the corner. And can you get him to stop humping the bar stool?" And the dog says, "I guess you can dress him up, but he is who he is." See, this one was written, or these poems, this book was published in 2007, so 13 years ago, but these poems were written a little before then. But this seems to be what's kind of happening even today in a way. This is called Who's Calling? The phone rings. There is crying on the other end, the kind of crying that one can't catch one's breath from. And when there is enough air there, words of hate and hurt roll out in a wail. I can't recognize who it is. Which one of my friends is crashing today? Is it B, who can't accept E leaving? C, who feels the world is ending? K, whose body is daily saying goodbye? I just listened. When it all stopped, it became clear we didn't know each other. This was a wrong number. They said they were sorry, and I said I was sorry, and we hung up. Lying on the table was an old Chinese book of wisdom. It was turned to the page entitled Abundance, the Overflow. Yes, sometimes there is enough pain and joy in the world, more than we can sometimes handle by ourselves. I thought of the Chinese Opium War. I thought about the abundance, and I realized there are times I think about increasing my medication. See, I think I'll read one from my other book that's called Ready or Not, Living in the Breakdown Lane. An old beat-up station wagon pulls into a gas station. A woman driver, a male passenger, a little white dog, and a cage in the back seat with a very high-pitched bark. "Shut up!" The woman screams. The guy is hitting the cage. "Shut up!" The woman screams. The guy is hitting the cage. The little white dog in the cage is barking. The woman and the man look like they hadn't seen a smile in years. I just stopped to get gas. Bagging groceries. I was in the supermarket checking out. I noticed that the person bagging my food, we got to talking. He was in his 90s. I asked why was he here bagging groceries? And he said, "I have bills and I'm not dead yet." She walks into the house. She walked into the house, her smile lit up the room. She walked right up to me and held herself close. My hand squeezed the cheek of her ass and gripped her thigh. She kissed me like we had all the time in the world. We were soon climbing on top of the table. Why waste time? Our bodies pressed themselves against each other. She walked into the house. She said, "This is the worst day of my life." And as she looked at me, things only got worse. I said, "Oh, honey, oh, sweetie pie, oh, my delicious." And she said, "Save it." I said, peaches, scrumptious, honeydew. She said, you didn't clean the dishes. I was gonna. She said, you said you were going to take off your boots. And here I am standing with my boots on making puddles. She said, you were going to go get a job. I said, I have a plan. There are times when she doesn't have to say anything. I can see it in her eyes. I just look away. She walked into the house and I ran up to meet her, grabbed her in my arms, told her how much I missed her, sank my lips into hers. She pushed me away. Is that all you think about? I told her I had some other ideas, but she wasn't interested. I ran out of ideas. She didn't seem to notice, and I hesitated running to meet her. She walked into the house. I heard the door. She said hello. I said hello. She said I'm home. I said I was glad. That was it. We both had long days. She walked into the house. Her eyes didn't even meet mine. My voice drove her into a rage. She kept her distance. Don't even think about touching me. Maybe sleep in a separate room. Maybe you should pack your bags. Maybe move to another state. She walked into the house and her smile lit up the room. She walked right up to me and held herself close. My hand squeezed the cheek of her ass and gripped her thigh. She kissed me like we had all the time in the world. We were soon climbing on top of the table. Why waste time? Our bodies pressed themselves together. One never knows what might happen when she walks into the house. Well, because of our present president, I could say, here in the States. Let me just see here. I thought this is right here. Isn't it beautiful when you have the poems and you have the book and you put the markers in there and suddenly they're gone. But hey, that's what makes all this exciting. All right. This is back to the book, You Might Need a Bigger Hammer. Who's your captain? Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Some passengers below deck have been asking, why are they standing ankle deep in water? The official statement, we're doing a deep soaking of the rugs, a thorough cleaning, sorry for any inconvenience, nothing to worry about, go back to your room. Now that the water is lapping at your thigh, the lights have gone out, the ship seems to be on its side, many of you are doubting the official explanations that everything is okay. In your hearts, you know everything is not okay. As your captain, I just want to remind you that it's my job to tell you everything is okay. Everything's okay. As a humanitarian, I feel compelled to say unofficially, I would suggest swimming attire, okay? Once in the water, look around for anything that's floating, hold on to it. I know lifeboats would have been nice, but there were budget cuts, and lifeboats for the economy class were the first to go. Actually, lifeboats for everyone is rarely the reality. As your captain, I want you to know I'm aware that the boat is on its side, and for that very reason, I'm going ashore in the lifeboat saved for me. I can guarantee that everything is going to be okay as soon as I get to shore. I will talk to our company experts who know how to present the facts so that it's obvious to any jury that it was the passenger's fault. And as your captain, I can assure you, everything is being done to protect the investors. Counter to the official statements that everyone has returned to their rooms and are waiting for their instructions, many have fought their way to the main deck, have found life jackets, and they have jumped the ship. For those of you waiting in your room, please remain calm. Practice holding your breath and await further instructions. This one's called throwing rocks. They're throwing rocks. They're throwing rocks. My distant relatives in Poland were seen standing in their fields throwing rocks at tanks. Throwing rocks at tanks. Didn't stop the tanks. Throwing rocks at Israeli citizens and soldiers. Hundreds of Palestinian children were put into prison or killed. Young boys throw rocks at each other, at cars, at windows. Johnny, how many times have I told you not to throw rocks? An unarmed caravan from Honduras fleeing United States installed dictators. Troops are sent to the border. If they throw rocks, we'll shoot them. We'll shoot them down. Nigerian army used Trump as a model to justify shooting and killing rock-throwing protesters. What is the point of throwing rocks? When you're under siege, my relatives wouldn't go down without a fight. Only having rocks as weapons, here comes my best shot. This is called How Much. How much do you want for that? The earth isn't for sale. I'll give you some beads. How about some shells? At $25, I was told it was a bargain. At $100, I was told I was lucky because some people paid $200. At $500, I was told it was a steal. At an auction, I bid $2,000 and I celebrated the victory. At $500,000, I was told I should appreciate the quality. At $1 million, I was told I had good taste. At $100 million, I was told I had privilege. At $1 billion, I was told I had power. At $1 trillion, I watched it burn. Yes, at $1 trillion, I watched it burn. And when the smoke cleared, it wasn't worth anything to anyone. I knew it from the beginning. There was no dollar amount. Why did I play along? Why? I used to like waking up to listening to tweeting birds. Now I wake up to tweeting madness. Tweeting about the next world war. Tweeting about boys will be boys. Many people I know are depressed in America. We are told to go shopping. Yes, shopping cures everything. You want to go shopping when you're depressed. So today I decided I'm going shopping for a really big box of happiness. And I know I can get that at a big box store. When I arrived, I was told I could find happiness on sale in aisle 7. When I got to aisle 7, I found the Dalai Lama standing in front of the pallet with the last box of happiness that was on sale. We both stood looking at the box of happiness, the last one that was on sale. It was just me and the Dalai Lama. It looked like I could take him down with a body check. But then again, you never know. Dalai Lamas may have some fancy moves. He didn't seem like he wanted to fight over it. We started talking. I think it was something about the breathing. Something about the mind. You know, focusing the mind. Or maybe it was the other way around. You weren't supposed to focus on anything. And it's everything. I got confused. I realized I'm standing next to the Dalai Lama and I should ask him some questions. I asked, do you have any good stock tips? No. I asked about, could he help me improve my poker game? No. I asked him, do the Buddhists have any good pickup lines? He didn't have any answers for my questions. And he started to leave. I followed him. I looked over my shoulder and I saw that last box of happiness was still there. I could just run back and grab it. I went out into the parking lot with him. He said he wasn't a religion. We walked our separate ways, and when I got into the car, I rolled down all the windows and sat there no longer depressed, and I just listened to the chanting. The short one, shooting stars. Everyone searches for the darkest places in the hopes to see the most shooting stars. He prefers to watch for them in the daylight. He sees more shooting stars than 10 of them put together, and it irks them that he doesn't even care. What puts them over the edge was the smirk he had on his face when he told them he does it with his eyes closed. And I'll read this last one since there might be some poets in the house. I have, this was actually made as a song too. You can check it out. I have some stuff on SoundCloud that is recorded with some bands, actually on Bandcamp also. It's called More Material. This is an ancient story. In fact, this story is so old it's before they're anthropologists. It's about a tribe in the jungle, deep in the jungle, who are surrounded by lions. Every day the lions would attack, and every day the tribe would fight back. Every day there would be casualties. The tribe talked about this endlessly. What could they do? They had killed many lions, yet more lions kept coming. One day, one of the members of the tribe came forward and announced that he had a plan or an idea. He was a poet. No one in this tribe liked poetry, and they liked poets even less. He had an idea, and since no one else had one, they agreed to listen to his idea as long as he didn't tell it to them in a poem. The poet said, "I think I know how to soothe the lions." Everyone was listening. The poet said, "Listen, poetry saved my life." Each poem was received as a gift, and he wanted to share this gift with the lions. He was sure poetry would soothe them and stop them from attacking. He was offering to the tribe that he would go out and read his poems to the lions for the safety of the tribe. Everyone was so happy to send out the poet, they even packed him a lunch, for they all had heard his poems way too many times. So the poet wandered out, looking for the best place to have his reading, wanting to have the right atmosphere. Our poet found a place and waited for the lions. The lions started to arrive. The poet waited as long as he could to fill up all the empty seats. Once our poet was surrounded, our poet started to recite his poetry, and the lions began to relax. They were soon sitting down, enjoying the sun and listening to our poet. Back at the village, the tribe saw no signs of lions. Could it be possible that the poet was soothing the lions? A whole day came and went, with all lions attacking. People were now talking about the value of poetry and poets, and arguing about the poems that they had heard. Back at the reading, the lions were relaxing as long as the poet kept reading. When the poet stopped, the lions became agitated and moved closer. Our poet tried to repeat a poem, which also made the lions agitated. Our poet was coming to an end of all the poems he'd brought with him. As he approached the last poem, he was drawing a blank to try to make up some new poems on the spot. The lions ate the poet. Once he ran out of poems, and they were even more content, for a few days had passed. The villagers were grateful to the poet. Everyone had a new appreciation for poetry, and they all agreed the next poet would have to have more material. Thanks for coming out. Please check out the links. Thanks to the World Poetry Cafe for setting this up, to hope that folks can, if they can donate. For all us performers and artists have been out of work for a long time with the virus. Appreciate just you coming out. Please, again, check all the links and check out all the other people who are here. And thanks again for the World Poetry Cafe for setting this up. My name's Paul Richmond. Keep writing, keep getting those words out there.